Welcome to a brand spanking new episode of Who Do You Think You Are? An exploration into how our thoughts, beliefs, and feelings create our reality. My name is Lastia Cahoot and I'm your host. I'm joined by my co-host on this show and in life, Glenn Sheridan. Every episode, we're joined by a special guest who inspires us to consider not only what we think, but how we think and how that thinking impacts our life experience. It's time to get this conscious conversation started as we ask today's guest, who do you think you are? Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Who Do You Think You Are? My name is Lastia. I'm here with my co-host Glenn, and today we have a very special guest that I am so excited about because not only is he a super amazing, interesting person whose bio kind of reads like an IMDb page, but he is also my teacher right now in spiritual studies and someone that I respect so much, that I admire so much, and just hold such a special place in my heart. His name is Dr. James Mellon. He is the founding spiritual director of the Global Truth Center Los Angeles, which was founded back in 2003 under the name the NoHo Art Center of New Thought. He has a vision statement for his life, which is enlightenment through entertainment. And then if we go to sort of what his background is, and if you have ever had an opportunity to see him speak or be on the stage on Sunday service or Sunday celebration, then there's always a Broadway reference that will come into play. And that has to do with the fact that for years, for decades, he was in Broadway. So he made his Broadway debut as Riff in West Side Story. He's also appeared in A Chorus Line, 42nd Street, The 5th of July, Jesus Christ Superstar. The list goes on and on and on. He has also directed and choreographed productions all over the country, including New York, Boston, Washington, D.C., Austin, Dallas, and Fort Worth. He also choreographed for the Children's Television Workshop, that's PBS, and he has done a host of commercials. He also adapted Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray, such an amazing story, into the world premiere musical Dorian, which premiered at the Denver Center's, Buell Theater in the fall of 2004. He has his own show, one-man show, Sissy Boy. He is a husband. He is a father. He has dogs. I know that. And he is also a published author with a book called Mental Muscle, 16 Weeks of Spiritual Boot Camp. And he has his second book, The 5 Questions, which he just finished and is going to be published in 2021. So I have so many personal experiences with Dr. James because he has been my teacher for the last 2.5-ish years. And we know several people, have many, many connections. And so now I am so excited to get into this conscious conversation with him. And at the very start, as we ask everyone who is a guest on Who Do You Think You Are, Dr. James Mellon, who do you think you are?
It's such a great question, and thank you for that illustrious intro. It's funny, who do I think I am? I recently asked that question to a class, similar question, which is, how would you assess your life? What would your life amount to? And, I'm going to answer it. The only way that comes up for me is, I know that I am God. I am God, which is not some heretic, thing that I'm like, I'm God and I am the answer to everything. No, it's that in a quantum level, I understand that it's all energy and that's what I am. So I've really worked hard to stop thinking that I am my accomplishments or even my resume. I listen to a lot of that and I'm like, well, yeah, I did do all that, didn't I? But it's not who I am. It's what I did with who I am. So I would just say I'm this creative, energetic field of pure potentiality waiting to jump out of my skin at any minute.
So as you're speaking there, this reminds me of one of my favorite stories that I have heard you tell, I think 2 times now during Sunday celebration over the past, I don't know, maybe 4 years since I started tuning in to the Global Truth Center Los Angeles online. Because for those of you who are listening and who don't know us, then Glenn and I are actually just outside of Victoria on Vancouver Island, and Dr. James is Where are you exactly? Because Los Angeles, I mean, people think Los Angeles, but if you
Right.
don't know it, that's there's a lot going on around Los Angeles, right?
Well, when we started, when I opened the center, we were in North Hollywood, Los Angeles. So Los Angeles is a big area. So we were in North Hollywood.
Okay.
Then I ended up being in North Hollywood and expanding to Westlake Village, California, which is north of Los Angeles.
Okay.
But the irony is now I'm in Westlake Village primarily, although right now I'm in Studio City. And if I took 5 steps outside of our center, I would step over the line into Los Angeles County. So
Wow.
we're kind of LA adjacent now.
LA adjacent. Okay, adjacent. I've heard you use that term a few times.
Well, that's because
So
I'm also
adjacent.
vegan adjacent.
And I was just gonna say keto adjacent, vegan adjacent.
I eat fish. Yes.
Okay. All right. So back to one of my favorite stories is something akin to you going to a little grocery store or supermarket. I think that's what it was. And there was a young man that you would speak to on a regular basis, just sort of, chat. I don't know, how's the weather kind of thing, maybe a little more than that. And at one point, I think he asked you, who are you? I see you, I talk to you on a regular basis. And you, this was kind of like a, okay, I better walk the talk kind of moment sort of thing. So you just said, well, truth be told, something like this, I am God. And his response was something like, well, I know that, but what is your name?
Right. Yes, it was very funny. Yes.
So that was just a delight to hear, and just thought, wow, it couldn't have fit in any better if you had scripted it or something, to
Right.
come into your talk.
Because usually if you say I am God, they like go, oh, okay. And they back up very slowly.
Yeah. Well, and that, what you just did, it reminds me a few times I've heard you say that you choose to use Dr. James instead of Reverend James, for similar kind of reasons, which I find interesting because there are so many newly minted ministers through the Global Truth Center and through the Center for Spiritual Living Palm Desert, who I have relationships with as well. And they're so proud to be ministers, to have that REV in front of their name. And it's so cool how people who up until May or June or whatever were the name are now Reverend the name. And even just even though we know each other, we try and we endeavor to bring that title into play, because it really it means a lot. It's so there's so much work. There's so much work that goes into that, and so much awareness, and so much exploration, and geez, I don't even know what words to use. It's almost like I'm coming into that.
It is. Class. Well, it's a commitment, and I know you are on your own way. But I love being a reverend. I do. I think it's if I look at my accomplishments, it's my greatest accomplishment. But the reason why I choose doctor instead of reverend is because the word reverend, the word God even, is such a divisive word in the world right now that I don't like to put reverend out there first, because people think they know who I am because of that. When I say Dr. James Mellon, they're like, oh, what's your doctorate in? Consciousness studies. Oh, so they instantly take it from a scientific level of, oh, then you must understand the way the mind works better. I do. That's what I've worked on and studied. People are drawn into that, whereas many people are pushed away by the religiosity of the word reverend. Yeah. But I eventually get around to it's Reverend Doctor.
Yeah, and it's so, I mean, so many things come to mind, and there's so many things that I would love to talk about. And oh geez, this is the first time where there's just so much information in the bio, and the sort of one of the people that I have enough of a history with, that there could be so much to choose from, that I kind of feel at a loss of what to go with right now. So I'll go with this, because I am in your very first Advanced Consciousness Studies class that is happening through the Global Truth Center, linked with the Emerson Theological Institute. And for me, this class was not where I expected to be this year. I expected to be in Ministerial 1. That's what I had been working towards for 4 years. And so this was a very interesting turn. And it took a lot for me to consider, is this the best place to be? And even, 4, 5, 6 weeks in, at some point, you and I had a conversation because I was really starting to question, I don't know if this is where I belong. And even though I still feel this unraveling that is taking place, I feel like, yes, this is where I'm supposed to be right now. It's exactly where I'm supposed to be. One of the things that I find so interesting, though, from class to class to class, is this idea of the books that we're reading, the things that we're talking about, the sort of the quantum sciencey stuff that we are now applying and comparing and contrasting and using to explain the science of mind philosophy,
Right.
and talking about things like faith, and which is something that I spoke to when I did my Sunday talk at the Center for Spiritual Living last Sunday. And it was super exciting for me to be able to bring in elements of what we were talking about in class in this quantum worldview into the talk that I did on faith. And what was really interesting for me was that up until a few days before my talk just kind of came through, there was stuff that I couldn't articulate because it can feel so dense at times. Like
Right.
the book that we're reading, the Everything Answer book by Amit Goswami, which is
Mhm.
the second Amit Goswami book that I've read. The first one was The Quantum Doctor. I read that this past summer and just loved it. Perhaps because it related more specifically to health and wellness, just that, and the
Right.
different modalities
Right.
of healing. But I was able to, like, stuff I wasn't understanding, it integrated at some point. It landed, and then it came out in my talk, and there was a point where I was thinking, is this too much, for the community? But afterwards, people came up and just said, thank you for explaining things in a different way. Thank you for making sense of something that I don't quite understand with science of mind because I'm new. And so that to me was really neat, and we've talked about it before, where this is different language to
Mhm.
explain something that we're already familiar with. So how exciting or how exhilarating, or what does this feel like for you? Because this is your first time teaching this class, and this is new frontier for you as well, as a teacher at least.
Well, to be honest, if you really look at this class, and if you really look at our teaching, it goes back to the Reverend Doctor thing. Um, this is the doctor part of it, not the Reverend part of it, but I'm putting them together. And as you explained yourself, we've now had 8 weeks, and I would say you spent pretty much of those 8 weeks kicking and screaming like the rest of the class.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never experienced that before. Most people that take classes with me are very excited to be in the class. And we are all excited,
Mm-hmm.
are excited and get excited each week and understand the material. But the truth is, as you know, the theme for this class is question everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so for myself, it's the most challenging class I've ever taught because, well, I've never taught it before. So it literally is being designed week by week based on intuitively where I think we need to be going. And it's also making me question everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so here I am, one of the teachers of science of mind out in the world, who teach practitioner classes every year, who teach ministerial classes, who teach this science, this philosophy. But on Thursday nights, I say, no, I'm going to question it all. And I'm going to throw it all in the air and let's see what sticks. And there are some things not sticking.
Mm-hmm.
So like you, I'll get up to speak on a Sunday, and my talks are different because I'm not going to go into the rhetoric that I no longer think perhaps works.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be speaking Ernest Holmes from a platform of having questioned it and realizing that there's more than what he said. So I'm no longer going to reinforce yesterday when today is here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really important to me. And I don't know where tomorrow will be.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, isn't that a song? Who knows where tomorrow goes? But I'm not going to do that anymore. Yeah, that's not a Broadway show.
No? Okay.
Wait, is it? In a world, da, 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 da. It's ice castles, themes from ice castles, I think. That's so gay. Anyway,
Okay.
Melissa Manchester.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so to be honest, I'm just as much kicking and screaming as every person in the class. Every Thursday night when the class is over, I wait to see who's calling me on my phone after class.
Mhm.
You've done it one Thursday. Uh, Reverend Jonathan, Rick, 4 people called me this Thursday after class for good things. It was all like, oh my God, that was the most amazing class. I hope I was okay. And I was like, yeah, everybody's fine. Kick, scream, yell, question, tell me I'm wrong. I'm really okay with all of it. I don't get much sleep on Thursday nights because I'm up going, whoa, if that's the truth, then I got to rethink
Mhm.
this. So yeah, so I am loving it. And
Yeah.
all these people are now like, you're teaching this next year too, right? For the next group. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. Let's just see how I feel. Because I do have to do a ministerial class coming up. So let's just see.
Right.
Right? Yeah.
That's right.
I don't forget.
You heard it here first. Yep.
That's correct.
That's right. Record it for posterity. Okay, so the other super interesting experience that I'm having is this. I already mentioned the word, this unraveling, and I now have a part-time job working in a chiropractic office. And I have talked to you, Dr. James, before about the type of work that she does. The acronym is BEST. I still don't remember what it stands for, but the treatment that I had yesterday after our class on Thursday and the exercise that we went through and everything that my body was experiencing because of that exercise, that to me is really fascinating how this, the kicking and screaming part of what wants to come out is literally, it feels like it's readjusting and misaligning and putting things out of place, and this whole sort of unraveling and crumbling of who I've been up until this moment is just being thrown to the wind, kind of like, what we're doing in class with the information. I have never experienced something physically in the way that I am right now because of the work that I'm doing, because of this class that is happening.
It's just bizarre to me. I think you and I are the only 2 people I know who go to a BEST chiropractor.
Mm.
And I think it's bioelectric systemic technology.
I think it's something like synergistic.
Synergy, yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, I was sent to this guy 10 years when I had cancer. In 2010, I was sent to him when I finished my chemo because he was going to be the one to get all that stuff out of my body.
Mm-hmm.
And I went in and he explained to me what BEST was, and I was like, oh, it's science of mind.
Yeah.
And he said, yes, it is. He said, I know all about Ernest Holmes. Well, I built his business up, so everybody from my church went there.
That same thing. That's what happened with ours. I mean, Reverend Carey wasn't the first to go, but there are probably about 10 to 15 people from our center who have gone because it is so in tune with, what we believe, what we teach.
Yeah. And it's because it's treating the whole body.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just, no, I'm sorry. It's treating the whole body from a mind perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just, let me crack your back.
No.
Let me adjust your neck. It's like, yeah, it's great. And you remind me, I got to get back to see him. But he did. When I finished chemo and radiation, right now I weigh 165 pounds. I'm in great shape. When I finished chemo and radiation from having throat cancer, I weighed 129 pounds. I literally was like a stick. And I hadn't lost my hair, but I lost a little bit of my hair in the back and the bottom, which now I kind of wish I lost my hair because it all grew in black. And I could have had a head of black hair again. But that's another different story. But I went to this doctor and I went in and I said, so, they sent me here and he looked at me and he went, yeah, let's do and he did all these tests. He said, yeah, you've got a lot of chemicals in your body. He said, we're going to get rid of them. He did. In 6 months, I was like back to my normal weight, feeling healthy. I never did any of the protocols they asked me to do in Western medicine.
Mm-hmm.
After I let them poke and prod and take things out of my body. After that, it was never, I didn't go back to that. I stuck with the BEST formula, the best formula.
The best formula.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are a gazillion other questions that I could ask. I do at some point would love to hear a little bit about Eric Butterworth. However, Mahoney, since you're co-host, co-steering the show, I know there's stuff that you would love to ask Dr. James too. So as Dr. James would say, have at it.
Have at it, Glenn.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you for being here. A couple of things, just since I know that you've got this early Catholicism background, and clearly you've had a good chunk of time since your childhood until now to kind of sift through a lot of different modalities or a lot of different worldviews.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything from back then that you sort of hold on to as a practice, or it's just you accept it as part of who you are? Because it is people can be Roman Catholic or Baptist or Jewish or whatever, and still be a New Thought sort of person, right?
Yeah.
But I find that there are things that I like. I didn't really have a heavy duty Christian beginning, just because of my family, where we were in Northern Ireland. But I was wondering, like, do you have anything from back then that you still feel that's a true part of me? My heart is like, Lassie has a thing of, like, when she goes into a church, there's an energy there, right? That then you connect with, and that's part of you. Like, do you have anything like that?
Oh yeah.
Or did you discover anything like, Buddhism or whatever during those years?
Well, I did. I grew up Catholic all the way till I was 27. I was pretty much Catholic. And when I was in New York doing West Side Story, I literally taught in the Catholic grade school system in the West Side, Upper West Side, St. Gregory the Great's. I was the teacher. I would teach religious studies to all the public schools who had Catholics in them. So they'd come to the church to get their religious studies, and I was their teacher as I was playing riff on Broadway. So I had very strong feelings about the Catholic Church. And I'll say the one thing that I have never, ever let go of is, and you're going to find this funny, my relationship to Jesus. And even though I am a New Thought minister and I understand quantum physics and I get it all, I have a very healthy, respectful, sacred relationship with who I consider the man, Jesus the Christ, to have been. And if I can say I am God, it's only because I believe that's what he taught me. That he said, I and the Father are one. You will do these things, greater things than what I have done, you will do. It's done unto you as you believe. He was the first metaphysician. So I trace everything back to him. And Ernest Holmes' book, half of his book is based on the teachings of Jesus.
Yeah. I'm sort of asking because, and thank you for that answer, like there are elements of the Bible that I sort of discovered, we'll say recently, in the last maybe 15 years or so, that I'm just glad I discovered them, because I think, oh, these are really good stories. Like, these are good. There's this, there's a thing that, like the stories of the Jesus stories of, the prodigal son or whatever, they're just like little nuggets of metaphor and archetype and whatever. And even if you don't necessarily get it on one level, you're going to get it on another level, right? And that's why I appreciate so many of the New Thought kind of teachers like Emmett Fox and
yes,
and people like Neville Goddard, like that they use that as their main source, and in a way that is so kind of opening up, rather than the literal, almost historical, look, this and this and this happened, end of story, we've got it covered, don't worry about it, like, just this is the truth, whereas the way they would do it, and the New Thought tendency is to do it in an opening kind of a way that sort of brings the person to the story, to the truth to the idea rather than like taking it all the way to them and saying, this is, delivering it. So
Right.
that, the Neville Goddard stuff and Emmett Fox, they just take that, as you're saying, the teachings of Jesus in a way that it's like, oh, or you can hear it like 9 times and then the 10th time you're like, whoa, what's this? Never heard this one before. So yeah.
Well, I think Jesus, you talk about the prodigal son, so much of the stories of Jesus, the things that Jesus spoke, were parables.
Yeah.
I mean, he was brilliant. He knew how to make up a story, to tell you a story that would teach you a concept, not necessarily tell you this is how you have to do it, but a concept, like telling, a father, the love, the unconditional love we must have for one another. He teaches us in the prodigal son by showing that, a father gives this money and the son goes off and he comes back with nothing, having done every heinous thing you can think of. And the father's like, it's okay.
Mm.
I embrace you. Come back. That's what he's teaching us. And these stories, the Bible, I think, is full of amazing, but things to read and to understand them in modern times too. The Old Testament, are we going to stone Lassia if she has an affair? No, we're not going to throw her in the street and stone her, which the Old Testament would tell us to do. Not that I think that's ever going to happen anyway, Lassia. Are we going to stone somebody and kill them because they ate fish? Oh no, they ate shellfish? No, we're not. So a lot of those things are just the things that are taken seriously as truth. And I love that you brought up the word truth, because it took me a long time to change the name of my center, because it was called, as Leslie said, the NoHo Art Center for New Thought. And it was attached to a building, the NoHo Art Center, which I had purchased. So the NoHo Art Center for New Thought. Well, it was very clear we'd outgrown it and I was going to have to move. How am I going to take the NoHo Art Center for New Thought and move it somewhere when the NoHo Art Center would still stay there? So I looked for a name, and I don't know that you've ever heard this story, Alessia.
Mhm.
I was looking for a space, and there's a gentleman named Obadiah Johnson. Have you ever heard of him?
No. This is
Obadiah Johnson was Ernest Holmes' chauffeur.
Mm.
He also was given a church by Ernest Holmes to run, because they became so close and he became so enmeshed in the teaching that Obadiah ended up being a pastor of a church, of a religious science church for Ernest Holmes. But he was his chauffeur. Well, one day Obadiah Johnson was driving Ernest Holmes around, and Ernest Holmes got in the car and Obadiah closed the door on him and his finger was in the door. And he just grabbed it. And Obadiah was like freaking out. He goes, just drive. Everything's fine. Just drive. And when they got where they were going, he just took his hand off his finger and there was nothing. No bleeding, nothing. It was just fine. But Obadiah had seen what it looked like. He said, I was thinking I'm taking him to the hospital. So it was Ernest's mind who basically understood the law of mind-body connection. So now I'm looking at a new space, and I'm in some part of Los Angeles looking at this 300-seat auditorium. And this guy who's taking me around, who's about 91, by the way, Obadiah Johnson, he's walking me around, shuffling around, showing me the space. And we get back to his office, and I'm thinking to myself, this might work. They have parking. It's like big. And I'm standing in his office, and he sits into his chair. And I'm looking around. I'm like, God, you have a lot of Ernest Holmes stuff here. And he tells me the story. And my eyes are getting all watery. And I'm like, you were Ernest Holmes' chauffeur? And he looked at me and went, of course. Why do you think you were led here? And I was like, good point. And then, to make matters even more ridiculous, he said, what's the name of your center? I said, it's funny you should ask. I'm considering calling it the Global Truth Center. And his eyes got like really big, and he went, that's what Ernest Holmes used to call the religious science, global truth.
What?
He said, so you are in the exact right place. That's exactly what Ernest would have wanted. Go for it. And I drove home. I did not take the space, by the way. I drove back to the center, called the board and said, the church is called the Global Truth Center. That's where we're landing. And everybody was like, oh, okay. But my heart was like, oh my God, I feel like Ernest Holmes just showed up to say, yeah, call it the Global Truth Center. But it's not about religious science having the truth. It's not. It's about the fact that in every religion, every path, every spiritual philosophy, there is truth. And the more we can see the truth in one another's path, the more we will understand this thing called oneness. So while some people say, how can you say you have the global truth? It's like, that's not what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
It's about understanding that there is a global truth that we all share. So great question. I'm glad you asked that question.
Thank you. Yeah. Woo.
No, right?
That was amazing. That was, oh,
amazing
wow.
story. Yes. I don't even know if Obadiah is still with us. I should go look to see.
Wow.
You gonna be okay? Or you need some shellfish? Or are you okay?
Because I've heard the story about the finger, but not the context of it. And then to have that come in, I mean, this is kind of like that 6 degrees of separation, but not with Kevin Bacon, with Ernest Holmes or even, I mean, for you have this amazing pedigree as far, or, lineage or whatever, as far as the new thought teachings.
I'm also 1 degree of separation from Kevin Bacon because Kevin Bacon and I both screen tested for Footloose. It came down to the 2 of us.
Whoa.
Okay.
I don't like to talk about the near misses that really drove me crazy, but it was either going to be Kevin or I. And we had both just auditioned also for an off-Broadway show called Poor Little Lambs. And Kevin got it and I didn't. But I got a bigger show, actually. I got a Broadway show and he did an off-Broadway show. So here we are now, both testing for Footloose. And I am like, and I know why I didn't get it. Because I had this little thing in my head. I was like, oh, damn him. He's not getting this one. And that's just the wrong energy. Mm-hmm. It's just the wrong energy. And Kevin had this, whatever. And it used to drive me crazy. But he got it. And then he turned around and said to me, my friend was the choreographer of that movie, Lynn Taylor Corbett. And Lynn turned to me and said, James, Kevin can't really dance this. Would you consider being his dance double? And I was like, absolutely not. If you're not going to hire me for the part, you don't get my dancing. Now, fast forward now, I wish I had been that dance double. I could show everybody and go, that's me doing that dance, not Kevin Bacon. Yeah. So anyway, 1 degree of separation from Kevin Bacon. And you, Lassia, are Ernest Holmes, Robert Bitzer, David Walker, me, you. There's the 5 generations of religious science.
Wow.
Because Ernest Holmes, his protege was Robert Bitzer. His protege was David Walker. I was David Walker's protege, and you can call yourself my protege. And then there's you. So there you go, 5 degrees. You go right up, straight up to Ernest Holmes.
Wow. Okay. So straight up to Ernest Holmes. And this is a great, opening the door to also Eric Butterworth, because you talk about Eric Butterworth sort of when you walked into the Unity Church in New York and you heard him speak, that something in you just shifted, something opened up, your mind, your heart, whatever it was, that kind of opened the door for you into a new path. And I just find that so interesting, because even though I haven't listened to or read a lot of Eric Butterworth, I know Glenn has read and listened to so much more.
That's right, because Glenn's Unity.
Yeah. Yes. So and I mean, okay, so just as an aside, I can't remember who it was that we were speaking with. Maybe it was in like a discussion group or something like that. But when Glenn chimed in, he said, okay, I'm like 1 part science of mind, 2 parts Unity, and maybe 3 parts a conglomeration of, so many other things like Seth and Abraham and blah, 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 blah. But part of it, like for us, we have these amazing conversations, and Glenn, honestly, he reads so much more than I do. And he has a job where he listens to podcasts and lectures and audiobooks all day long,
Oh
because
my.
they're allowed to have one earbud in. And so he's just listening to stuff. I mean, sometimes music comes in there, but he's just constantly listening and learning. So a few years ago, he introduced me to Eric Butterworth. And when I heard him speak, I just thought, oh my God, I could listen to this man all day long. I mean, not just the timbre of his voice, but the way he was speaking. It was so engaging and so captivating. And to know that you were a student of his is just kind of mind blowing to me.
Well, you know, I got there by accident. It's in my book. The 5 Questions has a whole section on what happened, how I ended up with Eric Butterworth. As I said, I was still teaching at St. Gregory the Great. In fact, Eric Butterworth spoke at 11 o'clock on Sunday mornings at Avery Fisher Hall in Lincoln Center. I'd never heard of him, by the way. And so when all my friends were going to Alice Tully Hall to hear a guy named Stuart Grayson, who just replaced Raymond Charles Barker, that's who they wanted me to come here.
Yeah.
And I said, well, yeah, I can go to 9 o'clock mass and still get there for the lecture, because I'm thinking, I'm not getting this mass. I'm Catholic. I got to go to church on Sunday. Plus I teach. So I got up, I went to mass, and then I got on the subway at 86th and Broadway and took the subway to 66th and Broadway, came up, and here's this crowd of people walking, and I just assumed they're going to church. And they were, to Eric Butterworth, who was at Avery Fisher, not Alice Tully. So I follow the crowd and I walk in, and there are tons of my friends. It was like Our Lady of Broadway. It was like Our Lady of Musical Comedy. Everybody's there. And even people from West Side Story that I ended up starring in West Side Story with, who I'd met there, here they all are. And I'm like, wow. So I can't find my friends. They're gone. So I think, yeah, they probably all stayed in, and I'm the idiot that got up and came to church twice in a day. So I sit there, and then Eric came out and he started to talk. And well, first of all, my friend Stephen Leahy was the singer. And he's this glorious singer. And I'm like, this is such entertainment. And then Eric comes out. Well, Olga comes out first, Olga Butterworth, Eric's wife. And she's in a gown. She looks like a Barbie doll floating across the stage, but a full-length, floor-length gown with like ruffles up by her head. I was like, whoa. I feel like I just stepped into like the South. And she does a meditation that sends me into another world. And she's got this voice, and she's like, good morning, everyone. And you're like, whoa, what's going to happen here? And then the organ comes in. And so it was gorgeous. And then Eric walked out. And I don't know what happened, but he started talking. And he started talking, and I just started crying. And I was like, what is happening to me? And everything he said was like a straight shot right into my heart. And when he finished speaking, I was like, oh, I can't go back to mass. This is what I need. And I walked home. I didn't even get on the subway. I thought I'll walk home from 66th to 87th. And as I'm walking home, there are my friends sitting in an outside cafe on Broadway. And they're like, wow, you finally woke up? They say to me. I'm like, no, you finally woke up. I was there. They were like, you were not there. I said, how could you tell? There were 2,000 people there. How would you know? They went, there's not 2,000 people. There's like 1,000 people. I said, no. I said, and I looked for you. You told me you sit in the front row. The only one in the front row was Eric Butterworth with his wife and all the people. And they were like, you idiot, you went to Unity. You were supposed to come to Science of Mind. And they said, well, you can fix it next week. And I went, nope, I'm done. Eric Butterworth is my teacher. And all my friends kept going to Alice Tully. And I stayed with Eric Butterworth for the next few years, started taking classes. I went on a summer retreat with him with about 50 of us. And I will say this, Eric Butterworth cut me to the quick one night. We're walking back in Allentown, Pennsylvania from the lecture that he'd just given. And somehow I ended up next to him. And I was asking him some question. And he turned to me and he went, you must learn to listen and not talk so much. And I was like, okay. And because I was in my 20s, I was like, okay. And then he just put his hand on my shoulder and then walked with me quietly. Yeah, it was really funny. And I was like, okay. And it was really funny when about a year later, Olga got very angry at me because I had put a book club together. We had just come back from some other retreat, and his book, did you ever read his book, Glenn? Discover the Power Within?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He had just brought that book into the world, and we're all excited about it. So I put all these people together and we decided to do a book club and go through his book. And Olga hit the roof. She was like, if you want to be a minister, then go to ministerial school and teach, but you can't just teach his book. And I was like, well, I don't want to be a minister ever. I'm an actor, but we're just getting together. She was a very fearful woman. And that was kind of my exit. Well, Eric got older too. And he got to a point where he was very, very old, and he couldn't really speak as well as he could. He was still really, but he would get up on stage and he would sort of mumble and you couldn't understand him. And then Olga would stand next to him and say, what Eric just said was, and it just became a little disconcerting. And then I got a show in Los Angeles, heard Dr. Walker speak, and the same thing happened again. I was like, oh, this is the next thing after Unity. This is the next, because David just also shot right into my heart. And then Eric passed. And I was like, well, this makes perfect sense. So what a circuitous road from 87th in Amsterdam all the way to Los Angeles to get to religious science, bypassing anything in the middle, such as Stuart Grayson or Raymond Charles Barker.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a long answer. That's a long answer to your question, but that was my journey. And a little Marianne Williamson thrown in between.
Oh, yes. Okay. Marianne Williamson. Okay. A Course in Miracles.
Yes. Yes.
Now, I have only taken a month-long course by someone, I can't remember her name right now, but it was a January thing. I understand a lot of people end up doing sort of a month-long introduction to
in January. Yeah.
January. And I wasn't, I didn't connect with it. And I don't know if it was because of the person who was presenting, if it was the material, if it was a combination, whatever. But I mean, there were so many other people who were like, oh, you have to do this. It's amazing. And it's so fantastic. You're going to love it. And it just didn't resonate with me. And so I haven't gone back to it. One of the ministers at our center here at, and when I say our, I mean like CSL, because Glenn goes to Unity. She, for I think 25 years, has been practicing and studying A Course in Miracles. And that's what just is a call on her heart. And so, I'm looking forward to getting together with her to learn more about it, because she also comes to CSL almost every week, and there are enough similarities that, it works. But what's the difference for you between A Course in Miracles and what works for you?
Well, first of all, I love what Glenn said, which is that you can be a New Thought Catholic. You can be a Course in Miracles Baptist. I don't believe anymore that one, causes you to leave another.
Yeah.
It's a great buffet of beliefs and philosophies, which ones work for you, put them together, mix and match. So I'm really a big proponent of that. Course in Miracles, my teacher was Marianne. I mean, I studied with Marianne and hung out with her for like a year. I mean, because she came from not Broadway, she came from the cabaret scene. She was a cabaret singer.
Oh, okay.
I knew her from when she would sing at, Brothers and Sisters, and sing adequately. She was never going to make it as a cabaret singer, but she certainly made it as someone who really understands spirituality. So I would go to her lectures and I'd go to classes with her. And it wasn't until I really got involved in studying Course in Miracles that I realized it was not the philosophy for me. Mm-hmm. And that what they believed, the basis, the AEP, the already established premise of Course in Miracles, is diametrically opposed to my already established premise in religious science. Because, and I mean no disrespect, but it's the way I kind of explain Course in Miracles Course in Miracles to me is life is but a dream, shaboom, shaboom. And I don't believe that. I don't believe this is all illusion. I don't believe this desk is illusion. I believe it's all energy. And so if my theory of life is that this is all energy and God is all of it, God is the table, God is Glenn, God is Glenn's glasses, God is all of it. And then consciousness becomes involved in terms of what we're creating, then life is but a dream doesn't work for me. Mm-hmm. This being an illusion, it's like another way of explaining Catholicism, which also doesn't work for me, because I don't believe that I'm going to die and go to heaven, that my reward is somewhere out there. I believe, as Jesus said, my reward is right here. The kingdom of heaven is within. Make it heaven. Mm-hmm. Stop making it hell. And for me, in Course in Miracles, and I remember sitting on West 23rd Street with Marianne teaching a class to about 20 of us. And I remember her going over this one section, and I'm just sitting there going, it might have been the last class I went to. And I just remember thinking, no, I can't look at all of this as though it's not important or it doesn't matter. And that somehow, someday I will dissolve into what I really am. No, this is what I really am at this moment. In 100 years, I'll be something else. Mm-hmm. 1,000 years ago, I was something else. So that's a big difference to me in philosophies. Now, once you get to the bottom of that philosophy, then you go, does this work or does it not work? In the meantime, there was a lot of stuff in Course in Miracles that I loved. So much of the writing is beautiful and makes great sense. But if the foundation that it's built upon is a foundation that to me feels like quicksand, it doesn't work for me to stay there very long. Mm-hmm. So there have been people that have wanted to teach Course in Miracles at my center. And I'm like, no, I can't let you do that because it's not the basis that I want the people here to have a foundation in. But if you want to study Course in Miracles, I can give you like some of the best teachers in Los Angeles to go study with. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that.
Honey Wench, do you want to chime in here? Because I feel like there are a few different avenues that you could go down with this right now.
Yeah, I did get a copy of the Course in Miracles recently. I spent a lot of time in thrift stores. There's lots of good books and whatever. So, pick it up. But what I do like is people writing from that groundwork, I guess, and then they do their own thing. So this is the one person I really like is Pam Grout.
Wow.
She did the
starter kit. Okay.
Yeah, and this is like this is supposed to be like the textbook or whatever to the Course in Miracles, but it's a lot lighter, fun.
Well, it is because my Course in Miracles book is somewhere up there, and it's like this thick.
Yeah.
And they're skinny paper, like little felt, like little tiny little pages. It's like thousands of pages.
Right. And it's like between the book, the textbook, and the teacher's whatever manual.
Oh yeah.
Like, well, okay. It's a bit like the Bible thing. It's like if you encounter this, like a King James Bible, super thin paper, and you're like, oh, like you need a magnifying glass to read it. Like that, you're supposed to study that stuff forever, I think is what the message is, right? And I appreciate because I get a lot of good quotes from here. Like she puts every page as a quote, or sometimes a quote from the Course in Miracles, but usually it's from someone else. Like the one that I love is Joseph Campbell. Find a place inside where there's joy, and the joy will burn out the pain. Like there's tons of truth in here, but she's putting it to illustrate what it means for her in the Course in Miracles, right? And again, that's only her interpretation, but
right.
I sort of hear what you say about the illusion thing, and it's sort of a thing of like, that's why I can't quite grasp or emotionally or in a heart-centered way connect to certain aspects of Buddhism, right? Because that illusion thing is there too, from a different perspective. But there's something that then is missing, I think, from like when I think of like the beauty that surrounds us in British Columbia, like the land, the actual land has presence, it has energy. There's something coming from this area, and we're we're blessed to be here. That's the way I look at it. So whether it's, you hear animals or birds, or you just see the sky, and the sky here is very different from what we had in Toronto. Like the colors, people would come here and paint it forever, like Emily Carr and people like that. So there's this energy thing where you just like, I'm looking at these things and appreciating them from a different perspective. I've zoomed out to a different position. I'm taking in more. I've never noticed that thing before. And so, yeah, they like with the science of mind and the unit, some of the unity teachings. But again, I sort of take that lightly, as Reverend Laurie says, hold everything lightly. It's that I just want to keep the flow going, like the knowledge, the beauty of people and experiences, and just being with people and being with like a good book, or just relaxing and doing nothing, like I want that flow of energy. But then there's the thing of like, yeah, but you then have to remember, I want to direct that energy as well, because as we're all God, and I want to direct that in my way, in my unique, from my power, right? From my essence, from my identity, because there's nothing else like me. And we can all say that, right?
Yes, totally. I completely agree with what you're saying and how you're saying it. And I feel the same way about life. As I sit here in my office, I look out and all there are trees and sky, and it's just breathtaking, although it's a little cloudy. But I totally, totally get it. I want to say something about Buddhism, interestingly enough. I was a Buddhist in that interim. Actually, I was a Broadway Buddhist, which is what they were called back then. If you remember the musical A Chorus Line, when A Chorus Line first came along, Michael Bennett, Nick Dante, well, they were the real two, Nicholas Dante and Michael Bennett. They were Buddhists. And all of a sudden, everyone on Broadway was Buddhists. And in fact, if you wanted to get into Chorus Line, you should go to a Buddhist meeting and meet everybody. And so I did. And I got my Gohanzen, and I was chanting, Yo, I got it all, and I really enjoyed it. But I had a warped sense of what Buddhism was back then. And it didn't last long. I was still a Catholic. I was a Buddhist Catholic. And we had a peace concert last year, 2 years ago. And a Buddhist monk was one of the people that were going to be participating. And he wasn't there when we started. And when we got to the Buddhist section, he had just shown up in full robes, and he was just beautiful. And he got up to speak. And I had this sensation, almost like Mother Teresa had walked in the room. There was a gentleness, a kindness to him, a sacredness to him. And he gave the most spectacular 10-minute, here's what Buddhism is. And when he finished, I was like, wow. So he and I became friends, and I asked him to help me understand Buddhism better. And what I got a sense of was, whereas Course in Miracles, I say, life is but a dream, shaboom, shaboom. I used to think Buddhism was also, I want nothing to do with the material world, nothing to do with the physical world, blah, blah, blah. But he helped me realize that true Buddhism isn't about underestimating the power of life and what this is. True Buddhism is about being detached from it enough that we can allow it to be the greatness that it is, also allowing ourselves to be the greatness that we are. And when he explained that to me, the way he explained it to me, he said, one of the greatest things that brings people most pain is their attachment to things, to people, to results, to relationships, to success, to money. He said, none of these things are bad. He said, that's the confusion people make. We're not saying any of this is bad. I just don't need to be attached to it. I can be detached from it. He said, and frankly, and I beat him to the point, I went, I know what you're gonna say. The more detached I am, the more I actually receive all of that which I'm detached from. And he went, that's how it works. So I've had a much better understanding. Buddhism could certainly work for me if I were out shopping for a religion, just in that context.
But I'm not shopping for religion, to my knowledge. I don't know. We'll see how Thursdays turn out. I might be.
Wow, that's cool.
That, Dr. James, what you just talked about reminds me of something that just came to me, an aha that I had many, many, many years ago when Glenn and I had our very sort of tumultuous beginning and transition from being friends to getting together. And
I'm sorry, getting together? Is that what we're calling it?
becoming more than friends.
Got it.
But no, it was that, I mean, I was in my mid-20s, I guess, and there was like I the feelings that Glenn brought out in me, I had never ever felt for anyone else. I had never experienced some of them, and I had never experienced the kind of, I guess, kindness from other people like I did from Glenn. And so I guess maybe being young and maybe not having had many relationships like that, there were just sort of, and people around me, there were these preconceived notions of what a relationship should look like, and what, you know, Glenn and me getting together should look like. And I mean, there were other factors, which, because Glenn also had two very young children, and he was coming out of another relationship, and we also, as you know, as many sort of things that attracted us to each other that were similar, we were very different people as well. And so, yeah, so there was a sort of like, well, you know, is it going to look like this? Is it going to look like this? Is it going to look like this? And then there was one day, and I still remember this, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine at the Squeeze Club on Queen Street West in Toronto. And she's talking to me about getting together with some guy, and this happened and that and whatever and blah. And as she's talking, she literally started to fade away, you know, like visually and audibly, and this big light kind of came out. And there was just this momentary, like, you know, aha of whatever relationship I have with Glenn, I just need to allow it to be what it wants to be and to unfold the way it wants to unfold. Now, that isn't the languaging, you know, that it would have come out at the time, but essentially it was this idea of, you know, don't outline, don't attach yourself to a certain outcome, just let it run its course the way it wants to. And I remember feeling so, and then, you know, my friend faded back in and I was back in the conversation. And I remember feeling so excited to want to share this with Glenn. And I think the next scene that I have in my head is you walking from the rent control or rent review at the time, I can't remember what it was, across like the parking lot towards the Second Cup, and me coming from the Second Cup, coming coffee shop back from a break, meeting you in the middle and just saying, I got it. I have this, like, I know what it's meant to be, and I can't wait to tell you about it. And you're just kind of like stunned, like, what? There was this very good chance that, you know, not only was there not going to be a relationship, we may not be friends or whatever. And I just kind of basically went skipping back to work thinking, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing ever. It was just this incredible, brilliant aha moment of, I don't have to, you know, I don't have to be attached to anything. I can just let it be what it's going to be. And there were even times, you know, after we had Milana or, you know, other people, you know, even after we got married, of, you know, that it's for life. And I mean, yes, that's the intention. However, there's also, you know, the relationship is, you know, what it is, and it is unfolding and evolving and blossoming. You know, it has its own sort of energy and its own life, you know, and that, you know, I'm on my journey, Glenn's on his journey, we have our journey together. And, you know, yes, I envision us growing old together, and well, he's already said he's going to mid-90s or something, and that's it. And I'm going to like a vibrant 120. So he's already okay with me having another relationship in my hundreds. But that was a big, you know, moment for me of this, you know, I don't have to make it look a certain way. I don't have to make it anything. I can just allow for it to, you know, just be what it wants to be. And
that's a great explanation of detachment.
Mm-hmm.
When we free our minds from all the mishigosh that we're putting on ourselves, from all of the critical thinking. I got to do it this way. Maybe this. Maybe it'll be this. Maybe it'll be that. When we let go of that, suddenly, you remind me. Did you see Sissy Boy? Did you ever see the show Sissy Boy?
No, I saw the program for it because that's like right when we came into CSL Toronto, then it was in the announcements.
Yeah. Yes. So you'll see it soon. It's about to be released again. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, I don't know that I've ever actually watched the whole thing. I've done it, of course. But there's a part in it when I talk about when I first saw Kevin, and I was sitting on the floor of my little apartment in St. Louis, Missouri, where I was starring in Candide. And the choreographer was sitting across from me, talking to me about the show. And she looks up behind me and says, "Oh, hi, Kevin." And I hadn't met the cast yet. And I turned around, and Kevin is standing in my doorway with the sun coming across his back. He's got this long blonde hair and this beautiful tennis body. He's got little tennis shorts on and a tank top. And I just turned, I was like, ah. And he said, "I just wanted to see if anybody wanted to play tennis," which I do not play tennis. I was like, "No." I said, "I've never played tennis. I could learn." And I was single at the time.
Yeah.
And he leaves, and I turn around to my choreographer friend and I was like, "I feel like I know why I came here." And she went, "No, he's married, he's straight. You did not come here to meet Kevin Bailey." I was like, "All right." And I never thought about it again, but I remembered that moment. And then all of a sudden, 3 months passed, we've become best friends. And one fateful night, how did you say it? We got together, and one fateful night, he kissed me, and I was like, "No, this is not my idea of where I want to go next."
Yeah.
A married man, straight married man, not happening. And, but it wouldn't let go of us. And he turned his entire life around in like 3 months, flew home to his family, told his parents, left his wife, and he'd been with her for 9 years. And and I always look back to that moment. I'm like, I know it was just the sun that was shining over his shoulders. I know it wasn't like the angels came out and went, "Ha ha," but that's what it felt like. So when you just said that about Glenn, I was like, yeah, I've had that moment. And it's like, and then of course, instantly, it's like reality bubble. Terry, the choreographer, it's not happening. He's straight, he's married, get over it. But it was, that's what I wanted to get to. It was the detachment from that. When I realized he was married and straight, I was like, oh, okay, that's done. I can detach from that. And then out of that detachment came this relationship, this friendship, this bond. We were best friends before anything ever turned into romance, because I was completely detached. I had no, I was like, he's right, it's totally fine. And then he kissed me. I was like, what? Do not do that to me. That this does not, no. And here we are, we're about to share 32 years of marriage.
Wow.
What would Mrs. Pangloss say about that from
She'd say,
best of, what is it?
The best of all possible worlds.
That was a more cynical take back then, but yeah.
That was good though. I'm glad that you went right to Pangloss for that, man. That was good.
Wow. So we got some similarities there. Okay.
Yeah, even into the 9 years.
It took you 9 years?
No, because Glenn was in a relationship with someone for 9 years.
Oh, you were? Well, I think it would have been harder had he had children. So I'm sure it was harder for you, Glenn.
Yeah. Yeah. I was a very young man when our son was born. And it's, yeah.
How young?
What's that? I was just shy of 22.
Oh, okay.
So,
I thought you were going to say I was 16.
Yeah. And I had been, and when we got together, Joanne had a daughter as well. So it was sort of a package deal. I loved them both. And I, it was where I needed to be, but I wasn't ready for it. That's a sort of a cheap way of saying that, but it's like,
no, but who is at 22 ready to raise a family?
It's, yeah, I mean, when you were saying about running down New York, you know, streets at a certain age in your late 20s, not like, I haven't got it figured out yet. Yeah, I was like that, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's this is where those phrases that trip into your tongue, like "it's all good," come in. But it's like, well,
was it all good, Bo? Yeah.
but it's Lassie and I, our favorite recent sort of saying for that kind of thing is, it's what's happening. Like if something is happening, then it's not your preference, but
Yeah.
it's what's happening.
And you know what? That's so much better than it's all good, because I got to tell you, some people just want to deck you when you say, don't worry, it's all good. They're like, really? And I think we need to be more careful about constantly telling people, you know, don't worry, it's all unfolding perfectly. It's like, when somebody said that to me, or remember, if you recall, well, I don't know, were you around last year when my daughter died?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So that person whoever that was actually saved my life at that moment, because Nora had just died. My life had been turned upside down on Sunday when the car accident happened. And then between Sunday and Thursday, which was the 5 days it took to move through that process, my world was, and still is, shattered in many ways. But that night, crawling into her bed, the night that she was taken off of life support and I walked away from her for the last time, crawling into her bed and lying in her bed, just sobbing, and then opening up my phone and looking at Facebook with the thousands of messages about her. And I'm laying in bed, and there was a moment where I just started laughing, and I said, I see why she likes this, because it was one of my pet peeves. At 1 a.m, I'd go in and go, turn the phone off, get from under the sheets and go to sleep constantly. And I was under her sheets looking at my phone at like 2 a.m, and I was like, I think I see the appeal here. And then I saw that Facebook post, which was, I guess you're going to have to reconsider your favorite saying, my life is unfolding perfectly, since this can't be something that unfolded perfectly. And I got so angry. I was like, how dare you science of mind me at this moment in my life, you know, or question me. And frankly, that moment is when I got out of her bed. I went down to my own room. Kevin was already asleep, having cried himself to sleep. And I woke him up and I went, I'm not taking a month off. I'm not leaving the church for the rest of the year. Because most people thought I should wait till 2020 to step back into my pulpit, to just give it a few months, or 2019. And I said, I'm getting right back up on stage on Sunday. And I showed him the post, and Kevin was like, well, this person, they mean well. I said, I know they mean well, but I'm going to get up and make sure everybody knows what I mean and how I feel. And when I got up, I talked about the fact that how insensitive it can be to throw our philosophy around in the midst of somebody living in this is what's happening. And that this is what's happening is as close as I could get to having any kind of reality. But then I also made it very clear. I said, and to the person that wrote this, no, I have not changed my mind. I still believe life is unfolding perfectly. My daughter's life unfolded perfectly for her, and I would not disrespect her by saying it hasn't. And just because I'm in pain doesn't mean that she isn't on the most magnificent journey she could ever possibly want, and that wasn't the exact right timeline for her. I said, so no, I'm not leaving my pulpit. I'm not stepping off of the stage. I will not stop saying what I've been saying. And I think we have to learn a better way of how to communicate this philosophy. And that was that.
And so it is.
Yeah. And I have not missed a Sunday other than my vacations since. So, yeah. It kind of saved my life, because I could have stayed under those pillows. Still makes me upset. I could have stayed under those covers for a very long time.
Yeah.
I almost think it was Nora saying to me, now you know why I laid under the covers reading my phone. It's a lot of fun. A. B, take a look at this and get out of my bed.
Well, you've mentioned before a few times, whether it's on Sunday or during class, that there are things that happen and you just say, and I know that it's Nora. Whether it's like some kind of beautiful, sunrise or a phone call or something like that. And then at the same time, you'll say, she's not here kind of thing. So I mean, I don't know how to speak to that. I just, all I can say to that is it has been such an honor and a privilege to be your student and to be someone who watches you and listens to you on Sunday, over the last couple of years as you have navigated.
Well,
I don't even know what to call it. And because it's just so amazing to see you like stand in your truth and still be firmly grounded in what you believe and embrace it and live it so fully, instead of going in a different direction, which could be totally fine as well if that is what is working for you at the time. But to be in practitioner studies and having Nora die just a few months into it, and the ministerial class was happening at the same time, and there's the congregation and everything else that you have going on in your life. But for me, and then I know just for some of us, because we talked about it together, because we were in class together, it really was an incredible experience for us to witness just your journey and the way you shared it so honestly and so vulnerably and so just compassionately, with so many. It was beautiful and very profound.
Well, and it also is both sides of that, since you've seen both sides of that. I can be very spiritually smart about it. And then, as I was on Thursday night, I can be very clear that she's not here and not okay. In that respect, that I have anger and frustration and sadness. And I'm not going to pretend I don't. And I'm not going to give this a spiritual bypass, because I get to feel my grief. I get to feel my pain and my sorrow. And that's just as sacred as my joy and my happiness. So, here's something interesting that happened. So Nora has a cell phone that her mother has kept active. So I will very often call her. And I always hear, "Hi, this is Nora's phone, leave a message." And then I leave her a message. And I always say, and you better call me back. I always say something funny at the end, like, and don't tell me just because you've died, you can't call me back. So call me back. Well, my son, who has turned into quite an amazing screenwriter, has had a number of awards from these screenplays he's written. I think he's going to be a very big voice in our world. He wrote a new screenplay and he put it on my bed on Monday, and he came in to vote. And then he said, "I'm leaving Wednesday. Do you think you can read it by then?" I was like, "Yeah." Wednesday came along and I had not had time to read it, but I got up at 6 o'clock and just grabbed it and started reading it. And something neither one of us knew about the other. It was an amazing screenplay. And it was about this 60-year-old woman she, in the beginning, she calls a cell phone of her, we don't know who it is, but she calls this cell phone and it says, "Hi, this is Annie's phone, leave a message." I was like, sounds an awful lot like Nora. And so she leaves a message, but then she gets cut off. There's a beep. And you don't find out till 3/4 of the way into the movie that the person she's calling is dead. And she keeps leaving messages for her. And I finished the movie. It was amazing. I was sobbing my eyes out. And I said to Will, "Will, you know the message, Annie's message?" He goes, "Yeah, it's Nora's message." I said, "I know." He said, "I don't know if you know this." I said, "But I call all the time and leave messages." And he was like, "I do too. I just leave messages." I was like, "Who do you think's getting all of our messages?" I said, "No, surely your mother can't be." He said, "No, none of us can really get into her phone. We just keep it open. So it's just," I said, "Yeah, but here's the deal. It never says that her phone is full."
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, "Oh." I said, someone's getting these messages." your mother, I think, actually knows how to get these messages. I said, so he said, oh my God, you're kidding, because I've said some really heinous things on those messages, sometimes about her. I said, yeah, well, I guess we got to be careful. And then we looked at each other and went, nah, just keep going. So it was so beautiful. It was like, you know, yeah. But I call her just to hear her voice.
Mhm.
Hi, this is Nora's phone, leave a message. And, you know, it's like, because there are moments you just think, is this real? Is she really not going to walk through that door at some point? And is it real? Is this really real? Then I wish I was in Course in Miracles. Life is but a dream, shaboom, shaboom. Might actually assist me in this moment. So thank you for letting me talk about that.
Thank you for sharing. Well, gentlemen, I think that we're coming on like an hour and 15 minutes or so. So maybe this is a good time to wrap it up for today.
Sure.
Do it again another time. But before we go, there is now something to just lighten things up, our rapid fire question round.
Oh, good.
We don't have a name for, but it is fun. And then at the end of it,
not the rapid fire question round?
What's that?
Is it
Oh,
just
the name of
rapid fire question round?
Well, I mean, that's what it's kind of called for now, but there's got to be some like, you know, cutesy, quippy.
RFQR.
Oh, you know what? If and when you listen to my talk, my Sunday talk at some
Well, I
point,
will.
there's an amazing acronym for faith in there. I'm not going to say it right now, but when I saw it, because I thought, oh, I need to pay homage to Dr. James and include an acronym or two.
Some acronym.
And so I found this one for faith and thought, man, this is awesome. So yeah, anyway, okay. So here, Glenn is going to ask you questions. You're going to have 1 minute to answer as many as you can. Don't think, just whatever comes to mind.
Okay,
and then
sure.
at the end, you're going to win something.
Okay, and before you start the timer,
Yeah.
Dr. James, could you pick a number between 14 and 173?
See his face?
55.
55. Okay. And are you ready, Les?
Well, okay. Sure. On your mark, get set, and go.
Do you sing in the shower?
Yes.
Which do you prefer, Carl Reiner or Mel Brooks?
Mel Brooks.
Ghost and Mrs. Muir or Ghost and Mr. Chicken?
Ghost and Mrs. Muir.
Sweet or savory?
Sweet.
Spiritual prototype or a mental equivalent?
Mental equivalent.
Rex Harrison or Harrison Ford?
Rex Harrison.
Bicycles or cars?
Bicycles.
Sid Charisse or Shirley MacLaine?
Oh, Shirley MacLaine.
Eric Butterworth or Ernest Holmes?
Eric Butterworth.
Action or adventure?
Action.
Appetizer or dessert?
Dessert.
Mandy Patinkin or Hugh Jackman?
Hugh Jackman.
Cher or Lady Gaga?
Cher. Yeah.
Vegan or plant-based?
Plant-based.
West Side Story or JC Superstar?
Really? West Side Story.
Sean Connery or all the other Bonds put together?
Sean Connery.
Waterfalls or water slides?
Waterfalls.
Forgiveness or compassion?
Compassion.
7,000 Ways to Listen or $6 Million Man?
7,000 Ways to Listen.
And scene. You know what? I was just so captivated about all these answers. I realized, oh, I totally forgot to stop the timer, thinking this is a record. Okay, you probably answered, going back, probably 13 questions. I don't know, Honey Bunch, if you need to know the number.
Okay, that won't matter in this.
It doesn't matter this time. Okay, all right. That was great.
Ghost and Mrs. Muir. Did you pull this out of my bio?
Yeah, and then I looked at the trailer for the movie, so.
Oh, okay, good.
And I saw Rex Harrison was in it, so okay.
But Honey Bunch, we talked about this yesterday. We've seen the movie.
I know, but
ages ago on video, maybe.
Well, but the Ghost and Mrs. Muir that I did, you know, I wrote the musical Ghost and Mrs. Muir.
Yeah, it's in this.
My bio. It's in that.
IMDb.
It's in that 20-page bio. Great. Yeah. But so funny you said Mandy Patinkin. What did you say, Mandy Patinkin or who?
Hugh Jackman.
Where'd you get? Why did you ask that?
It's a musical theater sort of actor person question.
Just so funny because I know Mandy very well.
Oh,
So
okay.
I don't know Hugh Jackman, but Mandy is, Mandy Patinkin got a Tony Award that I was supposed to be mine. So no, yeah, that's why it would never be Mandy Patinkin. Wasn't supposed to be mine because I now understand everybody gets what they're equal to.
And you know, isn't it interesting, Honey Bunch, when we were talking yesterday and we both were saying, you know, he probably knows some of these people that we're going to mention in here, and ta-da!
Yeah.
So the prize that you win is from a book by Richard Wagamese, who is a First Nations
You have the
author.
cover that you can show. Can you show the cover?
Oh, wow. That looks great. On meditation.
Yeah, on one Ojibwe's meditations. So he's an amazing screenwriter, and he passed away. And I love this book. It's so, you can pick out anything. And the one that you've picked is a very short piece. And it's from a dialogue, Me and Old Woman. Me, what does it mean to believe? Old Woman, it means to trust with your whole heart, to have faith. It means to have courage to act out of your belief. Me, well, how do I do that? Old Woman, you have to be honest. Me, what do you mean? Old Woman, you have to live your belief every day. To believe in something and not live it is dishonest. I became a better human being after that.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah. This is a fantastic book, but
So you're mailing it to me?
sure, as soon as I find my replacement copy.
There you go. Yeah, whenever asked, we're always supposed to say yes. All right. Okay. So thank you, Dr. James, for being with us today. Just one last question. If someone did want to get in touch with you or learn more about you, what you do, what you're up to, that kind of stuff, where can people find you?
I think they should find me at www.jamesmellon.org.
Okay. We will have a slide put up when I'm done with post editing. And then people can get in touch with you if they like. So thank you so much, Dr. James. This was such a delight. It was such an honor. It was such a pleasure. And Honey Bunch, thank you for bringing all of your ideas and wisdom and question and everything to the table today. And thank you to everyone who has tuned in for another episode, whether you're watching, whether you're listening, but to another episode of Who Do You Think You Are? My name is Lassia. We've been here with Dr. James Mellon of the Global Truth Center, Los Angeles, and my husband, my partner, my co-host in life, Glenn Sheridan. And we will see you again soon for another episode of Who Do You Think You Are? Bye for now. This has been an episode of Who Do You Think You Are? An exploration into how our thoughts, beliefs, and feelings create our reality. My name is Lassia Cahoot, and I have been your host. My co-host has been Glenn Sheridan. We'd like to thank the following for helping make this podcast a reality. Today's special guest, Dr. James Mellon. Music, Vasco Lorenco, copyright 123rf.com. Background illustration, Sakma Sterke, copyright 123rf.com. For more information on this podcast and our Lassia Cahoot Soul Excavator, please visit www.lassiacahoot.com. If you like what you've heard, please like, subscribe, and or let us know by leaving a comment. Thanks for tuning into Who Do You Think You Are?